Anyone who guarantees you'll meet your twin flame is a red flag. Run away. The twin flame soul mission is not just a fantasy or romanticized love story about two souls coming into physical union. It's a highly evolved spiritual work that encompasses a broader collective mission to heal karmic timelines and clear a pathway for planetary ascension. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our series and finale and final episode of Divine Soul Awakening. Today, we're talking about the twin flame mission and new earth paradigms. And we're going to touch on many different explanations of what the twin flame mission actually is, because recently there was a documentary exposing some of the false light teachings about twin flames. It's called, it just dropped or released on November 8th, and it's called Escaping Twin Flames, but it's actually about escaping a cult that created, it's called Twin Flame Universe, a group that was run by a twin flame couple that claimed they were twin flames, and they're more like a cult. There's a lot that goes into that as far as like what they were actually teaching and why it was so distorted in that the concept, and that they weren't actually twin flames. They were selling something that was very deceiving and caused a lot of emotional trauma and pain to those who were a part of that group. That's what the documentary is exposing. So we're not going to get into the details of the documentary itself, but just the main reason and higher purpose for sharing on this topic is to correct some of the distortions that were presented, because it does kind of put a negative stigma on twin flames in general. The documentary didn't go into what the true teachings of the twin flames are. And so I felt it was an unbalanced approach to that in general. But also, before I even knew what topic I was going to choose, I was getting downloads about this being the topic my guides wanted me to speak on. And I had other topics that I was considering for our final show, but they were extremely adamant and loud about it being this specific topic. And I was even thinking maybe we'll just talk about relationships and not talk about the twin flame. And they were like, no, you need to talk about the twin flame mission. And now I understand why, because that was before I knew about this documentary, and that documentary came out after I'd already made the agreement to do this. So it's all really source aligned in why it's important for us to present this information. This show is also serves as a follow-up to a show that we did last year, about a year ago this time. November 2nd, 2022 is when it aired, entitled Have You Met Your Twin Flame? On that episode, we really went into detail on what some of the general collective beliefs and theories are about twin flames, and what the concept is, and what's being generally taught and agreed upon out there about that. And I also, Mike Kahn and I shared personal relationship experiences. Mike is a twin flame in a relationship with his twin flame, and I at the time was just being twin flame activated on my journey. So I kind of was at the beginning of my phase, and now I'm a year into it. And I have a much more deeper, broader understanding of what that soul connection is, and what the true mission in terms of the collective perspective is for twin flames regarding ascension. So I'll just start by kind of updating everybody, like where I'm at, like where I was at that point in the show, where I'm at now. And we'll go through some of the understandings that I've gathered from my own personal experiences and the downloads I've received to explain the concept a little more clearly, as it relates to the actual energetic union of the twin flames, the higher purpose for bringing them together, and the collective mission work that they are doing. And then the new earth paradigms that we are helping to anchor in at this time as it relates to everybody on their ascension path. So, and then I welcome all of you to just jump in too at any time that you feel you have something to share or add or expand upon. I'll try to leave room for that too as I'm sharing. But generally, that episode will touch on like my full story, but essentially at that time, so I have a twin flame who's in spirit. He's crossed over. We didn't meet in the physical. And we didn't meet till he had been crossed over for quite a while. I didn't have any conscious awareness of my connection to this person. He was a public figure, so I had like a knowing of who this person was, but no sort of any soul recognition on any sort of level. Like this caught me way by surprise. And so I am married and have been married for 10 years now. I'm happily married, and I was not seeking a twin flame connection. I was not questioning whether or not I was with my soul partner. But this information came to me because it has to do with a broader collective mission as to why it's important for me to have this experience and understand who that person was. At the time of the show, I wasn't clear on who sorry, my phone's going off here. I wasn't clear on who my actual twin flame was. There was confusion around, is it my husband? Is it this person? But since then, it's been made extremely clear that it is the person in spirit, that my husband is more like a twin flame mirror soul. So they carry a very similar energetic frequency, but the frequency that I carry with this person in spirit is the exact divine core soul frequency match. So that kind of brings us into the definition of what a twin flame is and how it's been shown to me by source and explained to me by my twin flame himself and also my guides. The definition of a twin flame, as I understand it, is that two beings, two souls who were split at a time in creation where one soul carries, we all carry, divine masculine, divine feminine within us. We carry those two polarities within each soul. We are, as a soul, unique and whole unto ourselves. However, at the point of creation, there was a separation where two souls decided to split and become complete within their own and take their own individualized journeys of consciousness, of separation from each other to eventually come back together. So one of those souls will carry a more dominant frequency or energy of masculine, and the other will be more feminine. But each soul will have their own experience of being, male and female within different lifetimes as well. So, but what makes them twins, and it's 11:11 my time, which is so funny. How it's been explained to me is that the twins will carry the same soul essence. It's like, and the term essence, like my twin was like, look it up to really understand what that means. And so I'm going to read the definition on Wiki, or one of the definitions I found, which is on Wiki. It says, the property or set of properties or attributes that make an entity or substance what it fundamentally is, and which it has by necessity, and without which it loses its identity. So it has this ingrained within its DNA energetic blueprint. You are the same, energetically speaking, and you share a spiritual heart. So that kind of brings us into the union, what it means to come into union with your twin flame. It's not just about the physical connection. It can be about that. It can be about coming into physical union. But with my situation, that's not how our souls wanted to meet. We planned, it was shown to me that we planned this. So we knew that we were not going to meet in the physical. But we are energetically coming into union. We're coming into union at an energetic level. So not all twins have to be with their physical person. Their union, which is also called Hieros Gamos, takes place at a higher energetic level, at a higher dimension of consciousness, which is the 12th dimension. That's where you guys are still one. And so for me in my situation, we've been merging at a higher self level. So the version of my twin that I know and connect with in the astral and through visitations and dreams and healing experiences is the higher self version of this person. So it's not necessarily how he presented in the physical form, although you see attributes of his higher self coming out. But it's more his higher self version. So we're connecting more at that higher soul level. And it's the biggest thing about that connection is that it is source initiated. So when you meet your twin flame, when you come into soul recognition with your twin flame, you don't just meet your twin flame, you meet source. And that is the number one thing that is like, you're going to know when you come into contact with source, because that's what happened to me. Like I had a Kundalini activation when I was energetically merging with this entity or person on an energetic level. I actually was merging with source. I was seeing source in everything. Like I just was, it was profound and enlightening on every level you could possibly imagine. The unconditional love was extreme. The amount of purging and emotional stuff that came up and was released was an ongoing process that's still happening periodically. But in the beginning, it was very intense. Like I would be going through days of emotional purging. I was purging his emotions. I was feeling his emotions, and I couldn't understand why I was feeling his emotions, knowing that he's in a better place on the other side. So that was kind of confusing to me at the time. But later I then was brought to the understanding and realization that as a twin flame, when you start coming back together, your souls start to reunite energetically. There's a shared Merkaba that starts to get activated, and through that shared Merkaba, as the feminine polarity, I'm the receiver. So I receive a lot of the emotional discharge that's shared within our we have a shared emotional matrix essentially. So every once in a while I'm clearing stuff from his emotional matrix that's still kind of like lingering out there, even though he's transitioned, he's in a good place with his karma and his understanding of where his soul is at. But generally there's still some shared emotional energy that I can experience and release for him. So I'm actually helping him release his karma and heal stuff from our past lifetimes together and things like that. But a lot of the work that also comes up is related to the collective. So a lot of the purging that I do, or when it comes up for me, it's like layered. It's not just, it's like my stuff, his stuff mixed in with like Jesus and Mary Magdalene stuff, and feeling the pain of the collective heart for all of those twins who have been separated and who have been, feeling this longing or soul ache for somebody that they don't necessarily understand why. They have this feeling that there's somebody out there, or, they're missing someone. They may not know who that person is, but there's a very real, feeling of separation that goes into that. So it's like, just all the healing that I've been doing is being consistently shown to me that this is healing for the collective to help other twins find each other more. And that's what really makes it like worth it, for me to really be able to share in this beautiful experience, because it can be extremely painful, because you're going to look at like all your shadow stuff. Like your twin is going to mirror you. So when you look, your twin is going to show you all the stuff that's still unhealed within your own self, and that stuff will slowly start to come up. And so the shadow work is really integral to what twins are really doing on a collective level, is they're really going deep into their soul and all of their past lives and feeling everything. And so twins are ascension partners. When you meet your twin, you become ascension partners who ascend together. And that's something that's dictated by source as to when you'll meet your twin. And it's not going to happen a minute sooner or a minute later than what source decrees, what your soul essentially wrote in its own spiritual blueprint and destiny when you guys first decided to leave each other. And so that just needs to be clear, because there are a lot of people out there, and this group was one of them, this twin flame universe and this couple, telling people that they could guarantee that they could get you to meet your twin flame. And they were actually putting people together, pairing people together, and saying, okay, your twin flame is in this group. They would say they were channeling this information because they're twin flames. They have the ability to channel who your twin flame is. And they were telling people that this was your twin flame, and people were going out and like stalking the person, or they were giving people like permission to like go after people that were actually saying they wanted a restraining order on the person, because I mean, they were just like encouraging all of this like very, very twisted behavior. And then they were putting people together saying, okay, this is your twin flame. And some of them were like female relationships. They're like, well, how is that possible? This is like, I'm a woman and this is a woman, and I'm not, questioning my gender identity. And they were like, no, God told us that you're actually the divine masculine and this person is the divine feminine. So people are actually going out and getting gender reassignments to be with this person and force this to work. I mean, it's really, really bad and extreme, obviously corruption as to what the true meaning of a twin flame is. But generally, my guides have been very specific and very clear. Jesus and Mary, I did a channeling with them a month ago on this topic. They said, do not let anybody else outside of you tell you what you know within. So do not rely on external sources to tell you what you know within. So that's red flag number one. If someone's telling you they can match you up with your divine counterpart, that's something that only source can tell you, only source knows. And, even me as a medium, I don't want to be telling people who their twin flame is. Like I always say, you need to pray and meditate on it, because that's what I was told to do when I was questioning, is it my husband? Is it this person? I was told to pray and meditate, and source will give you the answers. Within 3 days, I had a dream, and it was extremely made very, very, very clear in the dream who it was, and through many other divine synchronicities, because once you're connected at that soul level, it's like divine synchronicities on steroids. Like you can't get away from the person. Like, it's like, you will know. Like him and I have like a telepathic communication that is just unreal. It's like, sometimes I can't tell, is that your thought or my thought? Like your emotion, my emotion. It's only gotten stronger since we've been able to embrace the fact that this is who we are. And so, there's a lot of ego confusion that you'll go through sometimes, and stumbling blocks along the way. But generally, that's where I'm at with my situation and the main topics I wanted to present. But I can go into more detail on some of these, but I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to share your experiences, your thoughts, questions, anything.
You definitely touched on a lot of points. And that was a massive transition from where you started to where you had your awakening, understanding of who you were, the divide and the challenge between you and your husband.
Oh, yeah.
And then you came to a point of beginning to understand. So can you just first talk about what that confusion, what it was like to just feel that confusion between your husband and knowing that your twin flame is on the other side?
Yeah, it was very confusing, because also the way that my twin presented was like so close to the energy of my husband that it was like almost confusing. Like I'd read their energy and be like, you guys are like the same. They're like so the same. And I didn't know this person in real life. So it wasn't really like, I met him on the astral, and then I started I saw who he was. So then I was able to verify everything that he was telling me, you know what I mean? Because you could look up information and verify all of it, but I knew nothing about him personally until I had already met him through these experiences. But it was confusing. Yeah, so that was a lot of disillusion of the ego. I had my blocks to believing that it was this person. I was like, no way, this is like not possible. And so that's kind of a big part of it. It's like you're going to go through like dissolution of ego. You're going to go through what people call the ego death. It's going to uncover within you like all the ways you're blocked to seeing like what the truth is. So my twin always tries to tell me like, Rachel, your brain is limited in what it can perceive. Like it's your ego mind or your human mind has limitations on what it can define, what it can accept. Your soul knows, your heart knows, but like your mind is what gets confused, and it needs to have like this explanation and that explanation. So it took a while, a long time, at least a year, I'm going to say, to be honest, where we had lots of ups and downs, my husband and I. This hit on some of his major blocks that he had, problems that were a part of our relationship the whole way through were exposed. And we had to look at all of those issues, communication issues, trust issues, everything. But my twin is extremely supportive of me being with my husband. That's the whole thing. He's like, I want you to be together, you know, like this is great. He's, you know, this is, we all made this contract together. You know, the three of us had a meeting in the astral realm together. My husband was in on this, like our higher selves planned this. Like we, you know, this is all in divine alignment with our blueprints. So, you know, all the karma that I'm working through with my husband and I is karma that my twin and I are working through, and the three of us are working through. So we're all really helping each other. And it's taken a while to see that bigger, higher picture perspective, because it's so much about unconditional love that there's just so much love involved that it's like, it's so healing to the soul, you know? Like I've been shown so many times, my twin has shown me how much he loves my husband, how much he loves, you know, it's how much he supports us. And he's helped me through some of the issues that I've had to work with the divine masculine, helping me to understand that perspective. So
how does your husband feel about this then?
How does he feel? Like he's right now happy, extremely happy. It's brought us closer together in ways that it would be hard. It's hard to explain like how, but because we've cleared all the blocks, all the programming, there's just like so many limitations to relationships that are kind of like put us more in our power in terms of understanding what our blocks were, what was blocking us from communicating at the heart chakra. So this is going to, your twin flame is going to help you connect with your higher core soul frequency, which is like you coming into connection with your higher self and living authentically and purely in your purest innocent form. And so it's going to pull apart like all that conditioning, and it's going to make, so I've had to stand very firm in my energetic boundaries with my husband and what I will and will not accept in this relationship, because I know now how to love myself, and I know what that means, and I know what that feels like, and I know what honoring myself and honoring my truth is. And part of my specific theme and my twin flame mission has, for my personal self, has been speaking my truth and not being afraid to be seen and heard for what I actually feel, and stepping into my power. So the more I have done that, it has reflected back, because all relationships are mirrors, right? All of them are.
Yeah.
So my husband's been mirroring that back by having to look then within himself and see where there's been codependency patterns coming up and things like that, where maybe we haven't been supporting each other as well as we should be, and spiritually growing together as well as we should be, and aligning at that really true, authentic, loving, open, vulnerable frequency that we kind of touched on some of those aspects of what that looks like in a previous episode when Stu was our guest. All of that, balancing the divine masculine, feminine energies within, the polarity integration, coming into
it's a lot with it, right? Yeah, 'cause I knew what you went through, because we were part of it here on the show, and we had it on the show. But Mike, you've been in the twin flame relationship as well, and would you be able to share, what was it like for you going through this process, and even hearing what you're hearing from Rachel?
Well, I'll actually start with my relationship with my ex-wife, and Con, you knew her. I actually introduced her to her twin flame unknowingly, and it actually started to unravel our relationship. So, well, yes, I know some people who are in a marriage and in a relationship, and they meet their twin, and that marriage stays fine and actually grows once you start to, as Rachel said, like work through some of this stuff and to understand that a twin flame relationship doesn't mean it's a romantic physical relationship. It's more about that spiritual aspect and stepping into these higher frequencies. So as my marriage was kind of falling apart, I was okay with it because I didn't want to step in or be in the way of this potentially profound spiritual experience for her. And at the same time, it was starting to give me a little bit more freedom. And through that sense of freedom and starting to listen to myself, and I explained, I'm not going to go into my story. I explained it in our previous episode, but 2 months later, my twin appeared to me in a meditation. So I thought, hey, my twin's in spirit form, in the spirit realm. And I was okay with that. I can just move on with life knowing that I've had this connection, profound awakening, profound experience. And as Rachel said, it's not a meeting of another person. It's a meeting of source, of God, and just having that knowing. And I kind of let it go. And when I let it go, I actually met my twin in physical form 2 months later. And yeah, it was bliss. It was unconditional love and joy and wonderfulness for about 8 months. And then all the unprocessed human side of us came forward. And, I've been with her for 8 years, and almost 7 years of it has been a bumpy ride because, I was refusing to admit and to own up to my stuff. She was having a hard time admitting and owning up to some of her stuff. And when Rachel even said the key word, right? Codependency. We became toxically codependent, mainly because we started to attach ourselves to the experience of what a twin flame is supposed to be. And we started to create a lot of this unnecessary struggles and problems. But as I've gone through my healing journey and Sylvie's gone through hers, and we've started to realize what was most important is we needed to come back into who we are and start to live from our experience of what love is and live life for ourselves first. And as we begin to heal and become more in tune and more comfortable with who we are in that place of love, it's actually allowing us finally, after 7 years of struggle and challenge, to start to bridge that gap again and come back into this place of unconditional love. Because the moment a condition is placed on that love, that's when the relationship has struggles and challenges. And it's an experience.
What we've seen. I mean, with twin flames, we've seen like that. It's typically been each of you challenge each other, and if both of you are open and aware, that challenge is really to better yourself and raise your vibration and become more spiritually open. My relationship with my wife she's my soulmate. So the two of us, we've been married over 22 years, and it's just been bliss, and we're just happy all the time. But we know from our friends that are twin flames, like you guys and William and Norma, we see they challenge each other. And even though Rita is my soulmate, she also challenged me and calls me out on the things that I need to put my attention into. So if I say something, she'll call me out. And I say, oh, okay, what is that? And because I'm self-aware, I recognize that, which is that similarity of the twin flame. But again, these are just labels that we've talked about in previous shows and as you're saying right now. So when you're in that turmoil with each other, you said you started out with that bliss, and then it was just multiple years of turmoil. What got you through? What made you stay there? Because I know not everyone is meant to stay together. What gets you to stay?
to be honest, looking at her in the eyes and seeing the true spark and the true love that's behind the masks and the hurt and the shame and the guilt and whatever else was presenting itself. Because when we look at each other in the eye, we see that connection. We know it's there. And to be honest, if we weren't married, we probably wouldn't physically be together anymore. Because it's been a challenge. And a lot of the challenges really started to surface for us about 5 days after we got married. So the legal marriage component has allowed us to sort of fight through it and move through it. But it hasn't always been a fun ride.
How about you, Rachel? Because I mean, you said you've kind of had your awakening, your twin flame realization like about a year ago, and you went through the back and forth, but it seems like you've gone through that process very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. I don't know about quickly. My husband would say it's taken way too long.
Well, it's not 8 years.
Yeah. Well, yeah, to get to where we're at, like, all right. So yeah, there's just a couple things I wanted to touch on, and then I'll try to move into that naturally. But one thing that Mike was saying about, like, when you look your twin in the eyes, it's like something else. Like, mine isn't in the physical, but like we, you know, I'm clairvoyant. Like we have dreamtime experiences, and the feeling is like, when you look that person in the eyes and you see past the image of who they are, just look past the image, look past the whatever the mask is that they're wearing, look through to their soul. I can't do that with my twin without crying, like, really. And so that shows me there's stuff, whatever it is, there's stuff that needs to be healed. So that's the difference, I feel like, between like a twin and a soulmate, is you have that. At the same time that you have that, the feeling with your twin is like, you can also, this has also been, I've had this experience with him where it's like, I could be completely showing every worst thing that I might be holding inside of me that's scary to me. I could, like, you could cut me open and I could show that all, and I would be completely loved, completely accepted, 100%. And that's the healing vibration. That's the potency of the connection. So my twin, when he first came into my life, even before I knew he was my twin, he knew I was his twin, I'm sure of it. But all the signs were there, but I didn't know at the time what was coming. He was presenting as someone who wanted to help me work through some of my father issues and some of my alcohol-related issues, addiction-related issues, even though I wasn't necessarily claiming to be like an addict in certain ways. This is something that was carried down into my lineage. And so I had a thing with alcohol, and that's what he really wanted to help me with. So that's how he was presenting. Well, you know, then I ended up finding out he was my twin, and that's what ended up being the first thing that we tackled together, was this alcohol and how it was affecting my life, and how it was, you know, not allowing me to be in my highest frequency, in my highest vibration, and that this was part of the karmic stuff that I came to clear. And so he stood by me every step of the way, like telepathically, we're connected. I don't have to ask for a sign. He knows what I'm thinking all the time. So the minute I'm getting out of alignment with something, like, or struggling with something, to heal something, like, I'm doing it on my own, I'm doing the work, but he's there with me every step of the way. And he will show up in any form he can to let me know that he's supporting me through that he sees me, he knows I'm struggling with that, and he's 100% supporting me. So that love, that eternal bond, is what can't be described by any other connection. It's like, you're going to go through the hardest things you've ever gone through, the hardest lessons, face the hardest challenges, but you're going to have that support. You're going to have that person there with you. at least that's how it feels, and that's kind of what I was gathering from the way you were explaining your relationship with your wife, Mike, why you're able to get through that. And the more I align with my higher self and get into that state of unconditional love, the more love I have for my husband. So it naturally expresses to my husband. I see him, I'm able to love him deeper and more authentically. So that's why it's transformed my relationship. So that's the paradigm. That is the paradigm. That is the new earth paradigm. It's like when twins come together, they create this bond. It's not just about romantic love. My twin expresses love to me as a father to a daughter, as a brother. Like all the forms of love are expressed through this one connection that it's like beyond, it's like eternal, it's beyond space and time, and it's more personal than what you get when you're connecting with, like, well, you know, source loves you that way, and it is that connection with source, but this is your mirror counterpart, you know, your same core soul frequency as an individualized soul. It's very potent and very powerful. And so that's really why twins come together at this stage of ascension, because it's very rare that twins would come together before we were at this evolutionary phase, because, you know, we were still growing, we were still kind of devolving in a sense, descending, and now we are ascending. So the you know, source is bringing twins back together to create these energetic portals or pathways, gateways, to clear the path for ascension, so that more can come in to stabilize these high level frequencies of unconditional love, to really teach the new earth paradigms, which is about you know, healing all the toxicity in relationships. So, you know, there's more we can go into, but I'll leave it there as far as like the inverted matrix and how there's so much inversion to you know, the energies and how, you know, relationships are, that we could talk about. But generally, I want to open it up to you guys.
All right, Con, you remember, you've said many times over various shows that there was a moment in my relationship with you where you just felt like I had opened up and had allowed that love in. That actually happened after I met Sylvie. Yes, so what you were actually feeling and experiencing in those moments was the vibration of unconditional love resonating through me, which is really the goal of the twin flame, is to be able to hold that vibration of unconditional love and acceptance. And that is what will ripple through the community, through the earth, and through all the realms, to start to create and anchor us into those higher vibrations. But when we slip out of that unconditional love, that's where the challenge and the struggle happens.
It was noticeable, because prior to that, you know, Mike's been doing energy work for 2 decades now. And this was probably about, I don't know, maybe about 15 years ago, 10 years, or more than 10 years ago, but at least maybe about 12, in around there. And prior to that, when I was working with Mike, you could feel I always wanted a deeper connection with him, but he was guarded. He had the wall up. Now, I just assumed it was part of his protection because him and his wife owned the clinic together. But after he had that change, you really did shift. Like it was, as you described, it was a vibrational shift. You opened up, and I remember just saying to you, "What's going on with?" I think you'd moved on. You guys had separated at that point, and I hope you don't mind me saying this.
Of course.
So, yeah, you'd moved into your own clinic at that point, and you were beginning your relationship earlier on, and your current wife was, I think she was expressing her change on Facebook or something. And I said something like, "There's something really going on with your wife there," and you're like, "You know what? She's got to go through. We got to go through what we need to, and it's all for the greatest good." And that was like one of my first lessons in hearing this. Now, I didn't quite understand it, but it's like, okay, well, yeah, you're good with it. Like, for me, it was a bit of a worry that I had for her, that she was going through a transitionary change. And for you, like, you understood it. You said she's got to go through that change. We all have to. And regardless of what it is, we know on the other side of that change is light. There's a rainbow. There's a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. But we have to go through the muck in order to get to that space. And you demonstrated that perfectly. And after that, your energy vibrated greatly. Her energy vibrated. Everyone's energy just expanded and exploded, and it shifted. And I could see how that would affect the overall collective unconsciousness paradigm of love, because that radiated around the world. And I guess it happened similarly for a lot of twin flame relationships that were going through this, that it woke up the world. It sent a vibration around the world to help us shift into love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and thanks for expanding upon that, Mike. Yeah, so someone in the comments, I just noticed, Lauren was the one above that. Yeah, she was just talking about, thank you for explaining the inversion of energy, so that it's very important. You feel the unconditional love in your heart. I hear through song lyrics, the love is eternal through the infinity sign. It can be felt and experienced. Connecting to your soul enhances this. Yes, 100%. And you feel the difference. So we were talking about a lot of false twin flames out there. Jesus and Mary were talking about this on that channeling. They were saying, like, anybody can say they're in a twin flame relationship. Like, it's such a common term. There's people just twin flaming it all over the place. But it's more rare than you think. 95% of that information is littered with falsities, misconceptions, distortions. You'll know by the frequency. The heart, what the heart is irradiating. Pure unconditional love for your fellow man, for humanity, because it's a collective mission. Look at Mike. Look at what Mike is doing. He's here to help heal the collective. He's not, trying to profit off of this twin flame thought. He's using this connection with his own soul and expression to heal others and use that vibration to help others come into alignment with their self, their higher soul, whether they're a twin flame or not. We're all essentially created with a twin flame, but not all of us are destined to meet them in this lifetime. This is a higher ascension, like mastery level class, the twin flames are taking, that we signed up for, at this specific time. But eventually, as your soul evolves and goes through all of its soul lessons and everything it wants to experience, you will come into union if not this lifetime, definitely a future lifetime. I mean, it's inevitable, but only Source really knows when that moment is going to be. At the same time, you can connect with your twin flame. You're always connected from a higher dimensional place, so you can still feel the presence of your twin flame through that higher self connection, even if you're not aware of who that person is in the physical or where that being may be, because they could also be in other dimensions. They could be your spirit guide. I mean, it's a wide range of possibilities in that sense. But yeah, discerning through the frequency of the heart. And that's where the twins merge. And that was one thing I wanted to share off that comment that is on my notes, is that another telltale sign about it being kind of a false union. The twin flame relationship is not about lust. Okay. Not to say that you're not going to have feelings of passion and lust in connection with that person. It is genuinely not, though, based on that. It's not a lower chakra connection. It's not based on the lower chakra emotions. It's a merge that takes place at the heart and the upper chakras. So what's been explained to me, like in the term making love, what my twin has said is making love is like making love through your heart chakra. So the paradigm of even sexual energy and what we've come to understand sexual energy to be about, mainly a lower chakra expression, is part of what's shifting. And part of what's shifting in my husband and in my connection is through this understanding. We're learning about like what that actually means, and like how to merge at a higher soul level between the two of us, and how to balance those energies and those creative forces. And these are they're not new teachings by any means. You know, there's sacred teachings that have been teaching about sexual energy, Kundalini energy, and all of that, and how it's expressed in its highest form. But generally, that's one of the things shifting is our society's ideas around sex and what that looks like, and sexual union with a partner, physical intimacy, and all of that. It's going to take this to another level. And so a higher spiritual expression. Yeah, Mike.
Can I expand on that? Because
Yeah.
I have personal experience with it.
Yep.
It is not about a physical release of sexuality. It is, as Rachel was saying, it's really an out-of-body experience. And the moment, at least for my wife and I, anytime it's become about a physical release or a physical experience, it stops, because that's not the magic of what this relationship and this connection through a sexual connection is about. And to be honest, it's not actually about ejaculation or achieving climax. That's the least of the concern about it, because it literally is an out of body. You become one with everything through that connection. And again, the moment it becomes physical, it just stops.
Yeah, exactly. And Doc?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. There's a lot more to it than initially meets the eye. Just to share with you, two of my kids are twin flames for each other. They are 10 years apart, and I wouldn't say they are peas in a pod by any means, but they certainly are very receptive to the other's physical, emotional state, and so they almost they can think for each other, for the other person. And so within amongst our children, it's very clear that these two are very much reciprocating in many, many respects. And so we have perhaps been served a little bit of a disservice by some of the spiritual media channeling people out there who've perhaps painted a male-female paradigm picture with a lot of sexual and other lower chakra energy in there. But actually, there's a lot more to this than meets the eye that we need to perhaps just be conscious of, because I've also been aware of two business partners who are of the same gender who are actually twin flames. And it's remarkable how at an energetic level and also at a personal level, they are just so supportive of one another. It's just magical. It's just absolutely beautiful. And I also know another couple as well. It's of a similar thing. They've had a bit of a dark night of the soul and so on and so forth, but nevertheless, the support is just really very, it's very unique and very, very enhancing on both sides, that there's none of the sort of lower chakra business going on. It's actually a very, very stable situation, but you can see their soul evolution accelerating because of this, rather than just purely the physical side of things.
Yeah. I was just going to add real quick that I also personally know a good friend of mine. We kind of became good friends because we found each other and we're both on the twin flame path. And she's also part of my Patreon group, but she has shared her story on there as well. But you know, she's female and she's married, but she has a twin flame counterpart that's presenting as female, and they're friends. It's platonic, but they're still connecting at a higher soul level and getting downloads and all the same information that I'm getting. And that's why we meet, you know, sometimes privately, because we're sharing all the same information that we're getting, and we process it together and support each other in our journeys. But yeah, it's definitely, there's no limitations as to how this can present. And what I understand about why it presents differently, it's really your soul contract. It's what your soul, there's specific soul lessons and reasons why your soul chose to manifest it in that way with those conditions or whatever expressions. But generally, unconditional love is the highest expression and of the twin flame dynamic, and can be perceived across many different types of relationships with your twin.
There's perhaps a couple of things I just want to add in here. So one other of my children is actually not part of a twin flame, but she's got, it doesn't quite work out semantically, but actually her twin, she's this part of a triplet, which is
some celebration.
Happy Diwali, folks. Wow. Happy Diwali, folks. Yeah. Anyway, so that's one aspect of it. But the thing I'd like to just sort of lob in here is that we've perhaps been used to this comment of two separate souls that were split. But if we saw it from the other end, actually it's one soul that decided to have a little bit of a party and go sideways without the balloons. But the main thing is they were one soul that's actually split. So rather than seeing us, because we're so used to the physical manifestation of a given soul, it's actually one soul. And for me, if you see it as one soul, that's just having two experiences in two different physical forms at a given point in time, it adds a different spin to it rather than just purely yes, there's two people here who are very, very alike sort of thing. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. That is my understanding, that it is one soul.
That's what we're seeing from this side of the fence, not from the other side prior to the split.
Yeah. And that's what I'm being shown, that my twin and I are actually in the process of merging back together into one soul. Like, it's called twin braiding. I don't know. It's been explained to me, but that's where my brain is like, nope, I'm having issues with that. Not issues, but it's like beyond what my brain can comprehend. And I'm okay with that. Energetically, there's a merging taking place, and it's more of a higher dimensional thing. But generally, that's your souls are coming back together.
The way it's been described to me is that it's a bit of a dance.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes, you're right.
There's almost a dance of the two souls as there's a little double helix going there, folks. But the main thing is it's a little bit of a dance within your lives or within your experience, within your energies, where this is happening. And at each overlap or intersection, you get a little bit of a boost, then you have a little experience, come in and get a bit of a boost, come in and experience. And it's a very, very powerful thing to observe. The thing that always struck me was that the synchronicities are off the scale, absolutely off the scale, which you would not. I mean, I think of my dad; he'll call me and that sort of thing. But this is beyond that, where the sort of things happen where both individuals, or even three individuals, have this almost exactly the same type of experience, but in a different context. And then when they talk about it, they suddenly realize that there's learning to be had between, and then they go back out again and then do it again. So it's a very, very interesting dance of moments or time that's observable in these sorts of relationships.
Yeah, there were many times when Sylvie and I first got together and we started to share some of our experience in our life before we had met. There were several concerts and different events that we were both at the same time. We never crossed paths or met, but she actually did some modeling when she was younger. And I remember seeing her picture distinctly because it was after a concert, and it was stated in this picture in a newspaper that she was just at that concert. And I distinctly remember that day. I was grade 12, I think, at that time. I distinctly remember seeing that picture, and then here we are years later and our paths cross, and she actually has the newspaper clipping that says exactly what I remember it saying. And so our paths crossed many times before we actually physically met.
And in many respects, that allows a mirroring and a point of reflection as and when your paths, energies, or whatever do meet up again, where you can then confer, discuss, and say, well, what about this and how about that? And you're actually, in a sense, from what I can see and what I've heard, you're learning from the other's experiences in a different context, through a different set of eyes, through a different dynamic, but it's exactly the same thing. And it's really remarkable when you see that between people who you know, and then it's just very, very powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, even with my twin, we were alive at the same time. I had no idea this was who it was, but yeah, there was a crossing of paths in the physical. But I didn't know. I was not spiritually awake. Neither was he. He died not spiritually awake. So at the same time, I wouldn't have known at all. All I saw in him was I was like, I liked his energy. I was like, okay, this person is not who I thought they were. Apparently I had a false idea of who I thought that person was, and then energetically I could tune to the energy and just know and recognize that I liked this person, like their energy, how they presented. But that was it. I wasn't even into spirituality at the time. And then I met my husband like a month later, and all of that. So yeah, it's possible. And serendipitously I was there. It wasn't like I wasn't even supposed to be there. It was just kind of like someone's like, oh, come with me over here. And I was like, okay. And I went. So yeah, it's really, really interesting, the synchronicity. So, if you're considering someone might be your twin flame, I would just go to source and pray, because source, you will not be denied. Like, if that is really the case, it will present and present and present and present so profoundly, like you just cannot deny it. But like I said, generally speaking, when you meet your twin, it's like meeting source. It's like that's when the activation really takes place. But just like in Mike's example, in my example, you can see your twin, I can see his face all over the place and not recognize, because you're not ready to see it. Your soul isn't ready to awaken. And that's not your path. That's not the path you chose. But you will know when your soul is ready to awaken, that will be happening energetically between both of you. It will be a shared mutual experience on some higher level. But beautiful when twins come together. And that's really the purpose of more coming into their divine union. That's the higher purpose, is to, like I said earlier, clear that pathway for ascension. And it's not just the pathway for ascension for twin flames, it's the pathway for ascension for all souls, all souls to come into alignment with their higher self and their higher core soul frequency. And so I kind of want to get more into like the collective mission work. And we talked about kind of the inversion programs, a lot of the societal conditioning around all things is being dismantled slowly, and twin flames are very key in helping to do that. Dismantling, the disillusions of the ego, seeing past the false illusions. Because when you have that meeting with source, your third eye blows open, and it's like you all of a sudden see through all the illusions. And that's exactly what happened with me. It was like I just saw in an instant through all the illusions. And that's why my relationship changed with my husband. I was like, that's false programming. That's false programming. That's matrix. That's matrix. No, none of that. So that was the challenge, was integrating that into your daily life, that the programming is so deep. It's deep within all of us. We might see it on some level, but to actually dismantle it within our own system and detach from it is a whole nother experience, because, we've built our whole identities around the way society has programmed us to be and accept as this is truth and this is normal and this is not, so just that one topic alone, talking about sexual energy and intimacy, like what Mike was sharing, like that's going to be a hard one to detach from for a lot of people. And not many people are willing to go down that road. And, to really understand what true intimacy is. And so, yeah, it's a cleanup work. It's the twins are doing it. They're like the frontiers of this work, and they're doing it. I'm not saying they're the only ones doing it. Lots of people are doing it. Lots of, spiritual masters that aren't necessarily twin flames are teaching that concept, but it's still very rare to come across people that are actually healing themselves on that level, or coming into alignment with the source, paradigms that are really what the New Earth templates are ushering in, and what is going to create peace on Earth. I mean, if you want to talk about peace on Earth, like that is it. This is like all these wars, they're inorganic. They are not natural to our organic evolution. We naturally were not created to be warring with each other, killing each other. This is all toxic dysfunction related to these false paradigms and programmings that we've just come to accept and have been normalized in our culture and history. And this is the clearing work that all of this is related and connected to. Because when you find that eternal love within yourself, for yourself, through your divine counterpart, when the twin flames start coming together, there's no need to fight. It's just like you have that love. It's like you're experiencing that oneness with God. It's that oneness with yourself, your higher self, that brings peace on Earth. That's the frequency. So it's ushering in this new paradigm. So all the twins that like started coming together, that it took sometimes the ones that were early on, maybe like in the last 20 years, just recently, twins have started to find each other in the physical and come into union, come into harmony. It took them a little bit longer to get into union and harmony, but the clearing work that we are doing, the more twins that come together and do this clearing work and heal these karmic timelines and all of this stuff, it's going to make it easier for the twins to find each other, to go through the transition easier. So like maybe if I had met mine 20 years ago, I would be taking a lot longer to process this and integrate this. But because of where we're at in our level of ascension and the work that's been done before us to clear this pathway for us, it's just going to get easier and easier for people to find each other, to do the work, to get the right information. And that's also why, unfortunately, it's very harmful to the collective for people to be out there promoting twin flame unions when they're not twin flames, and, doing this type of stuff that is going on with this cult that we were talking about. It's just very confusing to the collective, because there are people out there that are meant to be twin flames, meant to find each other, that might have a harder time now finding each other because there's all of this stigma now around the twin flames. Like, it's already confusing enough to be on that journey sometimes. And, to have this kind of false information pervading the collective thought stream and mainstream to confuse people, it really kind of slows down, has the potential to slow that process down. But, generally speaking, we're not worried about that. As twins, we're going to keep going and, aligning with the highest path. But generally just watch out for those distortions and stay tuned to the right frequencies. You're going to feel it in your heart. But
Go ahead, Doc. I just want to follow up with what Rachel was saying there. Go ahead first.
Yeah. So from what I have observed, I think some folks in the spiritual medium world are doing a disservice by promoting a particular model with a halo around it of being amazing, love, etc., because the twin flames, first of all, one may be here, one may be elsewhere, or if they're both here, they may be teaching each other a lesson, which may not necessarily be the most obviously loving relationship. And moreover, little aspects of this, like the runner, chaser, and all this sort of business, don't necessarily fit into everything. So just from what I can tell with the varieties of things I've seen, is put aside all of those understandings and make it your journey, and don't assume that somebody's got this sort of logical series of steps that you can work your way down, because it, from what I can tell, it doesn't fit that way, not all the time at least anyway. And the second thing, which may be a little bit further than we want to take this at this point in time, but so we're comfortable with this single entity of a single soul that's split, that causes a twin, and then they all have their experiences. But if you think about it, if we all come from source, we're all twins.
Correct.
So,
Very true.
on that basis, this issue of oneness, and forget the oneness of humanity, which sometimes seem to be very nice folks, this oneness of consciousness between us and every other consciousness, be it a dog, a tree, a frog, a rock, a planet, is really where the sort of endpoint of twin flames is, where we actually suddenly realize, yes, we truly are blended into all one consciousness. But that'll take a few more years longer, I guess. But there we are. Okay. Anyway, over to you, Khan. It's a slight digression.
Well, Rachel, you're talking about the requirement or the hopefulness that people find their twin. Now, I'm fortunate enough that I have my soulmate and my own spiritual awakening is coming from somewhere else. But through the trauma release work that I've been doing, I've had a lot of twin flames come to me. And because when the twin flame comes together, the relationship is for them to challenge each other. So they are in that divine love, but they're also very challenged in turmoil. In rare cases, a twin flame may murder each other. They might split up, but they don't really have the guidance because they don't understand what's happening, especially in that early days of the turmoil that both of you described. There's that extreme amount of bliss. There might be some turmoil, and there is the real awakening in that challenge within each other because there's so much love for each other. There's that turmoil, the conflict that shows up, and because of that love, that's where you want to do better for each other, that you look within yourselves. The necessity of having a guide would make it even faster. And I found that I've had a lot of twin flame couples come to me individually and then together. When they come together, certain questions that'll channel questions through to ask each other, there's an understanding that they didn't necessarily have before. And one of the greatest questions that's always come up is, how do you show your love to the other person? And how do you want to receive love? When your partner does this for you, how do you know they love you? And whenever my wife does certain things for me, I understand that's her love. Now, my way of loving, I'm very touchy-feely. I'm very expressive. My wife isn't as touchy-feely, but her heart is so big that she nurtures me other ways. So here I am expecting that I want to be cuddled and touched and loved, but that's not her expression of love. So understanding your partner's expression of love and for them to understand how you want to receive love is probably one of the fundamental steps I've found with any type of couple relationship work I've done, especially with the twin flames. In that initial conflict, understanding how to send and receive love is important in having that understanding and knowledge.
Well, I'll touch on that.
Please do.
So when they come together and there's that intense love, even the smallest little hurt is also amplified. So that can create a lot of challenges, especially early on in a relationship. Even so, if they are not even aware of what a twin flame is, but they have this connection, because that hurt is just amplified to the same level that love is amplified. And that, at least in my experience, can create a lot more challenge and issues in that relationship, because you tend to take it a little more personally when you are hurt. And I will also expand a little bit on what you were talking about there, Con. Sylvie had no idea what twin flames were, what energy work was, what spirituality and ascension was. And in a moment when she touched my arm and had the full spiritual awakening, she actually thought she was having a stroke and thought she was having a heart attack. And if I wasn't there to sort of guide her through, because I knew immediately what had happened to her, I was able to guide her through that. So for us, I had that knowledge and that experience to be able to guide her through what she was experiencing and allowed her to relax into the experience. So instead of it being one of fear and overwhelm, it actually became joy and bliss. And she'll say in that moment, the moment the energy zapped through her, she said she had the answer to every question she ever had and every question she never knew she had, because, like Rachel said, she just became one with Source in that moment. And that was a beautiful experience. Jenny, you had something to add?
Yeah, I've been reflecting on what you guys have all been talking about. In my experience, at one point, I thought that my ex-husband was my twin flame. And what happened was that I began to awaken. I began to have all these downloads and started doing a lot of healing work myself. And there was a moment of him starting to step into it, but he got scared. He started to see these things that he was going to have to heal, and he ran. He basically booked it. And it's interesting because in my heart, I go, was he my twin flame? Because we had many times where our paths did this, but we didn't actually run into each other. So it's very interesting listening to you guys who are with your twin flames and your soulmates, where this is going to take me into my next relationship. And it's just I believe for me at this time, I had to go through that awakening to be able to clear this stuff. And I've done a lot of work with Con and healing and William on this aspect that I know this person's going to step into my life, and it's going to happen. I don't believe it's going to take forever. I think I believe for myself, I had to do a lot of clearing work because my heart was shut off, seriously. Even though that last relationship was really the most I had ever let anybody come in close enough to get there. And I think that was part of the reason that I felt like it was a twin flame relationship. And so I sit here also wondering, do we only have one twin flame in our lifetime? If we are all aspects of our source creator, do we have more than one twin flame out there?
I take a stance on that, and I believe we only have one twin flame. The word twin is two things reflecting back at each other. So it's one twin flame. But we have millions upon millions upon millions of soul connections with everybody. And when we actually are able to sit in that state of unconditional love, we can see the part of us reflected in anyone we look at through that place of unconditional love. So yes, many different relationships and connections can bring about profound changes in your experience, but I choose to believe one twin flame, one exact soul imprint that is the same resonance as yours. Doc.
And don't forget, Jenny, I mean, there are people who are fractals or have got aspects of the essence of others. And so obviously it's hard to know exactly. So I'm still trying to get my head around this. But basically, if the frequencies of a soulmate are very close to your twin flame, then it may be really hard to discern because there may be a lot of overlap. And so quite how it all fits in, I haven't got my head around it. But it's but I do know with my eldest daughter, her twin is actually, they are part of a triplet, which is a very rare thing. And I've had that cleared from 2 or 3 different sources now. But when she described how she met, I mean, basically she's a junior doctor, and she met another junior doctor from a completely out of the blue meeting, and they were so much in tune with their thoughts. It was just amazing. And they both started crying. And these are grown adults, basically. They both got their own partners, so it's not an issue. But it was very clear that she is destined to, when I checked, that they're going to meet in different stages of their lives as they go on. But it's as Mike said, I think the majority of them are too, but there are other models out there. And I think the thing is just to be open and just to see how it pans out, rather than think it's always going to be this way, or whatever.
That was my thought with what I was going, what I've been thinking about listening to all of you. We have Lauren here who says, I mentioned a pillar of light meditation, Zen, higher self meditations. I forgot to add that you go to your highest self first and may connect to your twin's energy from first connecting to your soul originally. I wanted to expand on that point.
I've heard that too, where somebody put the call out, one part of a twin put the call out, and as the universe responds accordingly, stuff happened. The only problem was that the other person didn't quite understand what the hell was going on. So it was a hell of a confusing for them when it happened. So they, what's going on here? So, and then it took a while to sort of, I wouldn't say beating them about the head, but it took a while for deep introspection and all that other work that had to be done for them to suddenly realize this. And then once it clicked, and it was just very clear. But it took a while for the other party to understand this. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I know it was touched on, but be sure to not project this concept of twin flame onto a relationship. It can create a lot of struggles and a lot of problems, and you try to create something that isn't there. And if you feel, or if you have met your twin flame, do your best to not get so caught up in everything that's written about twin flames and the way that the journey is supposed to be. Every journey is unique. Everyone will have its beauties and everyone will have its own challenges. But if you get caught up in the narrative of the runner and the chaser and all that, you actually start to create those experiences in the relationship, even though they might not be there. Understand every person, every relationship, every connection, every twin flame is a unique experience, and don't limit your potential experience, whether it's twin flame or not, based on what somebody else has experienced.
And on all of these experiences with every individual, every consciousness that comes across our journey is there to be learned from. Even if it appears to be a terrible, awful experience, and it's all, you can't imagine any worse person in the world, but actually there's something you can learn from them. And we see this on our news, if you still watch the news, and we hear it in all sorts of places, but there's a lot of learning to be had, and it's all part of that journey.
Yeah.
We have Marjorie asking, do you need to be in a relationship with a twin flame?
No. Oh my gosh, no. And do not be seeking that or thinking that you do. Okay. Absolutely the opposite. You can have very beautiful relationships with soulmates. And like we're saying, it shouldn't be the goal. In fact, it shouldn't be the goal at all to meet your twin flame. The goal should be connect with your higher self, that develop your connection with source, come into oneness within yourself. Leave the twin flame to source. He's got your back. He's got you covered. You'll know when you need to know. Like me, I wasn't seeking it, but I intuitively knew this person was out there just because I knew. I mean, I did have a knowing of that. And that is more apparent to me now that I've actually met the person. But there was a calling in my soul, even being with my husband and happy and stuff, there was a calling in my soul that there was this person out there that I might run into. And the feeling that I had when I met him was it was joyous, because I was like, oh my God, you're the one. It felt like meeting a long lost brother. Like you had a sibling in this world that you just didn't know was there, but you knew was there. And to meet that person for the first time is just this beautiful, coming back together. But it's not necessary. And your soul either signed up for that in this lifetime or did not. And so you want to treat every relationship. You want to honor every relationship that comes your way, because one of the things that was discussed was, I wanted to touch on a couple of things. Well, do you just have one twin flame? This is going to be very personal to each person's unique experience. But being on this path, I am 100% in agreement with Mike that you have one twin flame. And it's been made very clear by my twin even. And I was going around in circles with this one for a year. Okay. He said, which one is my twin? Who is it? Do I have two? Maybe I have two, trying to make that work. And it finally got so bad that it was actually holding my evolution forward, my spiritual progression forward that my twin had to come into my dream time and sit me down and be like, Rachel, I'm going to send a medium to you that's going to channel a message from me so you can finally hear it through somebody else that I'm speaking through to confirm this, because it's like he just doesn't want to see me like suffering. It's like let's move past this part of it. And so that's exactly what happened. Like a week later, I mean, I wasn't seeking anybody. A week later, somebody texted me a phone number of somebody that I had already known in the past, but wasn't connecting to. And like, you need to reach out to this person. And I'm like, okay, here it is. And boom, 3-hour session with my twin, this person channeling every question I ever had directly from him, all answers aligned with what I already had been told and what I had already known and what I had already received. So there was nothing like new being said. It was just like, my twin is always like, you need to trust your instincts, you know, but that is key, like in understanding that, yeah, this is the person. Like it needs to be clear, like this is your twin and it's not that person, but that person does carry a very, very, very similar frequency. And my twin explained to me that, you know, the reason why we didn't meet in this lifetime was because we probably, I don't know, like we must have had, it would have been like maybe too much for us to handle energetically to be in the physical with each other. So this was an easier way to process through what we needed to process through, and according to our different soul contracts and things that we wanted to experience. So him helping me on that side is the more aligned way. Me working through the karma with my husband, which is very intense and going through all the similar stuff that Mike has expressed. That's why it was confusing. For me, has required a high level of spiritual maturity to be able to endure, you know, that type of, you know, challenges coming up in a relationship. So my only thought would be like, you know, maybe it would have been even more intense if I had been with the actual person, is what I'm saying. But because it was such a similar frequency, we're able to connect and have that type of relationship, but it wasn't the twin, you know what I mean? So there can be confusion. So there can be like, you can meet people that are what they would call a twin flame catalyst. Essentially every relationship, this is how Jesus has explained it, every relationship that you have is a precursor to you meeting your twin flame. It's preparing you to meet your twin flame eventually. But this is an experience. Meeting your twin flame is like evolutionary over lifetimes. It's not just like one lifetime type of mastery. You've had many lifetimes. My twin and I are ancient souls who've been around. So we're finally at this level where we're ready to ascend together. But not every soul is at that level in this current lifetime. So that's why you don't want it to be your focus. At the same time, don't be confused in a certain sense, because you will meet people that might spark a lot of soul recognition and very challenging. It might fit the paradigm of twin flame, but it could just be a very close match. So yes, you know, there's an exact copy. There's a frequency match that cannot, like when you look at the energy, it's the same essence. It's not, and so there is like a distinction there. Not to say that like you can't have triplets and all these like, you know, anomalies and stuff like that. Not to say that those things can't present, but for the greater understanding, you know, it really is the same.
Would you say that it's not unreasonable to ask if it's in your highest and best interest to meet your twin flame?
Oh yeah, no, you can pray. I'll ask, pray, you know, pray to source. And if it's in your path, it will come to you, but don't, you know, externally go seeking and doing all
don't go looking for it and don't reject it.
And stuff like that, you know, that's,
Yeah, we got Marjorie asking, should you be calling in your twin flame?
All I did was put it out there that I would love that experience and then let it go. I wasn't looking for it and I wasn't trying to create it, but I knew the moment I saw Sylvie what it was. But I even kept it quiet from her for 5 days. I didn't want to share or project anything onto her experience until she had her awakening. then I said, okay, now you need to know what this is really about. But yeah, you don't need to go looking for it. Live your life, have fun, love everybody, and again, don't go projecting. And if you start looking and start creating this need for it, you create a lot of stress and a lot of challenge and a lot of dysresonance in your experience. So just trust.
Rita and I we've been in bliss for 20 years, or it wasn't until 20 years that we figured out, there's a label to what we have. Prior to that, we were just living with each other, loving each other, so happy. And now there's a label. Okay, great. There's a label, and it's not necessary.
Yep.
Yeah, when it's there, when you know, and you don't need the label. You can just disregard the label because, like, energetically, that's just our mind trying to understand something. That
trying to make you feel special.
Yeah, that's beyond the ego. Remember, it's going to take away all those ego layers. So.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
well, I love this. Thank you so much for bringing this topic up for us, Rachel. If anybody wants to know more about this, you can go take a look at our season 3, episode 5. You'll find that in our YouTube channels. I'm going to bring that up right now. We'll find that episode in previous. That if you look at season 3, episode 5, you'll find the full information on this that Rachel was describing earlier. If you want to know more about your twin flames, go take a look at our second episode. Mike, I get you on the banners here, please. I get you on the second one, Balance and Healing Energies for Twin Flames, and that's going to find that on Rachel's channel. Beautiful. So I just want to give a final announcement here. Let me get rid of that one. Sorry, guys. So this is our final series finale of Divine Soul Awakening. It doesn't mean that we're going. So we've had 55 episodes of Divine Soul Awakening. I really do want to thank my panelists here for co-creating this show with me for these last 55 episodes. It really has been an honor and a treat. This is definitely not goodbye. We are still very much intact. In fact, Rachel and I, we have a mediumship 101 mastery program beginning in January. If you want to be notified of the release, it's going to be mid-January. You can sign up for our newsletter and come in for our a discount code and new updates and information that we'll be sharing as we build up to this course, and it'll be released in the middle of January. With that, I want to, if you want to join Rachel has many groups on her Patreon group where she walks people through this process, through the Ascension process. She's a guide and helps people with her community. Consider joining Rachel on her Patreon group and be a part of her community. If you would like to have one-on-one mentorship, learn from Mike Borg and his more than 2 decades of energy healing, spiritual work, very profound work in all different areas and modalities, go check out Mike at energyhealing.ca. Next is our lovely Jenny Hart. Jenny is not only our sweetest sister that we have here. She's sorry, I didn't mean that, Rachel. I came out wrong.
the ego's gone, Con. I'm in love, so it's all good.
Jenny is a Reiki master and distance healer and sound healer. Consider reaching out to Jenny. Her work is so profound. There's just so much love that flows through Jenny. Healing is instantaneous for anyone that is part of her services. And she's the perfect person that I know of to learn Reiki from, because it is a very personal and spiritual connection. So I really highly recommend joining Jenny at Heavenly Heart Reiki. Next is our brother Doc here, and Doc is our bereavement and end of life spiritual coach, and he really nurtures families as they're going through the final transitions. He'll help connect you through these informations that when you just don't understand, when you're losing a loved one, Doc will be there, and he's able to connect the families spiritually and actually tune the messages so you can have a conversation in the final hours with your loved ones. Consider checking out Doc at theinnervoice.online. And last is myself. If you want to build up your abilities to tune into your awareness, release emotions, move into creation, consider you can apply to the Enlightened Mastery community. This is a community of like-minded souls. In this community, we actively work on meditations that are guided through spirit 3 times a week. Every month, we have 2 sessions where we get together as groups so we can have open discussions. And once every 2-3 months, we have one-on-one sessions for emotional releasing, discussions to help you along your spiritual path. If this is something that interests you, consider applying at the link that you see below at connight.com/EM from Enlightened Mastery -application. I also want to thank our guests and the people that we recommend most. The one that is closest to my heart is my wife, Rita, and she is in multiple avenues of healing when it comes down to nutrition, knowing what to do with her body, dealing with issues for the body. Rita is an amazing intuitive healer, and she is able to help you with your diagnosis. And then you can take that diagnosis and go work with anyone on the panel to be healed directly. So Rita is amazing for that. Not only that, she's an author of 4 cookbooks, teaches that at the acupuncture colleges here in Ontario. She is definitely a wealth of knowledge and information. And finally, I would like to thank my mentor and good friend, William Michael Forbes. William is been a mentor to many of us. He has courses that are ongoing that channels the spirit guides in your own spiritual awareness. He opens up the awareness, moves you through the process on how to release emotions and trauma from your body, and then moving into creation. This is something that's been that's completely channeled by spirit and well worth it. Right now, William has a discount across his entire site and website until November 27th using the coupon code Ascension to receive 30% off. And that's it, folks. Thank you again. Please follow us and join us for whatever is going to be created next for us. You can definitely find us on our YouTube channels and the links we provided just now. So with that, thanks for being a part of you. And thank you, my panelists. I love you all.
Love you.
Love you.